arriving out here in the bush of South Africa. I'm in a very unique region. Now, this is the year 1910. Lake's already been ministering in such power throughout South Africa for a couple of years. And I believe the enemy was stirred up to bring death and destruction as a blockage to the tremendous move and revival of the Holy Spirit's power that was taking place. In fact, Lake would write in his journal that sometimes in history, unless a man or woman can contact the living God in real power, as he wrote,
power out of the ordinary, power sufficient for tremendous needs and unusual occasions, he or she simply cannot live.
So here in this region of South Africa, in one single night, a fever epidemic struck this entire portion of country, all the villages surrounding us here, and it began to kill the population. In fact, it struck so far, it was 350 miles long. Now, think about that. I'm from the state of Minnesota in the USA. You can almost put the entire state of Minnesota into this territory of South Africa to realize the immensity of the proportion of the fever epidemic. He wrote in his journal that he would ride out in the morning. He would see men dead alongside their wives. He would see wives dead among the living, children stricken, dying, and dead. Whole families corrupted with this black fever is what they recommend it was. It was an epidemic in massive proportions. Lake also wrote that they ran out of wood to make caskets, so they had to bury people in blankets. Well, let's transition from here underneath a thorn tree, where just such a man as Lake spoke of that could contact the living God was deep in prayer for this epidemic. And we're going to find out what happens next in this most incredible story of the discerning of spirits.
I had a man in my company who knew how to pray. God had appointed that man to pray, as I have never found anybody else anointed to pray. For days, he remained under a thorn tree. And when I passed that way in the morning, I would hear his voice in prayer. And when I returned in the evening, I would hear his voice in prayer. One day he said, "Mr. Lake, I feel today that if I had just a little help in my faith, that my spirit would go through to God." And I went on my knees beside him, joined my heart with his, and voiced my prayer to God. As we prayed, the Spirit of the Lord overshadowed our souls, and presently I found myself no kneeling under the tree, but moving gradually away from the tree some 50 or 100 feet. My eyes gradually opened, and I witnessed such a scene as I had never witnessed before. A multitude of demons like a flock of sheep. The Spirit had come upon him also, and he rushed ahead of me, cursing that army of demons. They were driven back to hell, or the place from whence they came. Beloved, the next morning when we awoke, that epidemic of fever was gone. That is the power of divine healing. God destroying Satan. John G. Lake.